Hey, John, before we go into the in-camera, can you give us a few minutes to stop live streaming and lock it down?
Okay.
To the in-camera, can you give us a few minutes to stop live streaming and lock it down?
Okay. Okay. Accidentally had the YouTube up, so we're streaming now, so we'll kick off. Do we have enough people online?
I believe we do.
We are at 23 panelists and 1 attendee for our meeting.
Okay, that should be enough then. So we'll call to order at 1:31. And first off, we'll recognize that we're conducting our business today in the territories of mostly the New Channels people, but more than that as well, potentially. And I'd also like to recognize that I missed Director Cote's birthday, so I wish her a belated happy birthday. I think it was a week and a half ago or something like that.
They don't happen anymore.
Oh, okay. Alrighty, so that brings us to the agenda, and I don't think that there are any specific changes to the agenda, but there may be some changes to the recommended motions in a couple of items, and I think those will be or already have been sent out by email, and those are for items 8J and K. Am I missing anything else, Janice or Wendy?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
I did send those to everybody though.
Did not or did?
Did not.
Okay. Okay. Well, if we can get that just out to folks before we get to those items, that'll be good. All right. That brings us.
Agenda.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Perfect timing. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Shannon. Okay. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay. That brings us to item 3, which are declarations. Does anyone have any declarations of conflict of interest? Oh, Director Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to declare a conflict of interest for item 8B. I am a member of the Alberni Golf Club.
Okay. All right. Are there any others? And no gifts exceeding $250. Okay, seeing none. Oh, Mr. Holmes, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, it is absolutely up to every director to decide whether he or she is in conflict of interest. But if Director Haggard is simply a member of the golf club and not a owner, shareholder, member of the executive, etc., then I think there's a broad enough community of interest there that I would doubt there'd be a conflict of interest, but I just wanted to provide that narrative for consideration, because I do note that once she is declared a conflict of interest, she would require a legal opinion to come back to this matter anytime the tax exemption is being talked about by the board. Thank you.
Dr. Haggard, is that clear?
That's fine with me. I just want to be above board.
Okay. I may join the golf club now. Okay, that brings us to the adoption of minutes for item 4A is the Board of Directors meeting dated September 9th, 2020.
So moved.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Do we have a second? Thank you, Director McCarthy. Any comments, errors, omissions, additions? I didn't see any. Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item B, Electoral Area Directors Committee meeting dated September 15th, 2020.
Move adoption.
Thank you, Director Cote. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Same. Does anyone have any additions, deletions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. All right, item C, Salmon Beach Committee meeting dated September 23rd, 2020. Dr. Roberts is not connected. Oh, there we go. It says Mike Erg, however.
So I'll move adoption. I wasn't there, but
Thank you, Dr. McNabb. And Dr. Roberts, would you like to second? Oh, Diane Bodnar. Thank you, Dr. Bodnar. Seconding. Any comments? Errors, omissions? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay. All right. Let's see if I can rename. Janice or Julia, is there a chance we can rename Dr. Roberts to Director Roberts? I think you can click on the participant item there. It's just going to confuse me.
I'm trying to
Okay.
do that right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that brings us to the Alberni Valley Emergency Planning Policy Group meeting, October 6th, 2020.
move adoption.
Thank you, Dr. McNabb.
I think there was,
Thanks. Go ahead.
I think there was a date. The date was wrong on that when I first looked at it. I don't know what it is now, but oh no, it's October 6th. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. All right, that brings us to finally to the West Coast Committee meeting dated October 7th, 2020.
I'll move adoption.
Thank you, Dr. Is it Steer?
Steer?
Steer, Dr. Steer. And I missed who seconded it. Oh, thank you, Dr. Cole. Okay, any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed, motion carried. Okay, so that brings us to petitions, delegations, and presentations under item 5 on the agenda. For the most part, for the people who are presenting, we have generally a 10-minute maximum in regards to the presentations. That's for the body of your presentation. Questions and answers don't really count. And if you see me hold up 2 fingers or 1, that's how many minutes you generally have left. And if we get to that point, I may interrupt and ask if we can continue. Unless it seems like you're quite close to the end, then we'll just go a bit over time. But first off, we do have an introduction of Michael Mcgregor, our new land resource coordinator. So I guess, Jenny, if you wanted to take that away.
Thank you. I'm really excited to introduce Michael Mcgregor. He is our new lands and resource coordinator. He joined the beginning of September. Michael has with the Strathcona Regional District, Parks Canada, Nature Conservancy, and as well as experience in the private sector. He's been environmental scientist with some consulting. So please join me and Michael to our organization.
Well, on behalf of the board, welcome, Michael. If you wanted to say a few words and introduce yourself, that would be great.
Okay, hi. I just want to say thanks for, welcoming me here, and everybody at the office has been great so far. You have a really good group of people here. Looking forward to working with you all and maybe eventually meeting you in person sometime.
Sounds great. I have to ask, are you from around here? I went to school like in Parksville with a Michael Mcgregor, but it might be a common name. So
No, originally from Alberta, moved out
Okay.
here about 8 years ago. So.
Okay, well, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, and second, we have a recognition of 5 years of service for Ms. Tricia Bryant. So Terry, are you online? There we go. Please take it away.
Yes, I'm here. So I'm happy to present Tricia, virtually present Tricia with 5 years of service with the regional district. She came onto the finance team in 2015 as the accountant. And then for the last 2 years, she's taken on the role of asset management implementation coordinator and has done a fantastic job of trying to roll out our new asset management program She's a born and raised Port Alberni girl and lives in the Alberni Valley with her husband Mark and her son Harris. And she, yeah, a great, valuable member of our team. And thank you for your service, Tricia. And we look forward to continuing working with you.
Thank you.
So normally we would be giving you a gift and having a photo. So hopefully someone can take a
Here it
screenshot. There we go.
I brought it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great. Yeah, I'd like to thank you for your service and everything on behalf of the board. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a really enjoyable 5 years, and I look forward to more years.
Great. Great. All righty. I think the next item we have is from, and I think it might just be Brock. Is it just you today? Or do we have others? Oh, no, Linda's here. So we have Ms. Linda Sams and Brock Thompson. Is Eric here as well? I don't know that he is. And they're here to talk about the closed containment system being assembled in Port Alberni. So please take it away.
Thank you. I'll just jump in to start. I'm Amy Johnson. I'm the
right there.
Engagement Manager with CERMAC. So I'm here to introduce Linda and Brock and also make apologies for Eric, who wasn't able to make the meeting today. He had some work come up, so he's not able to join us. But presenting today will be our Innovation Director, Brock Thompson, and our Sustainable Development Director, Linda Sams. So I'll be sharing the presentation here. So I'll just bring it up, and then I will hand it over to Linda.
Thank you, Amy. And we're cognizant of the 10 minutes, and we're going to work really hard to get that done in time. So first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to hear from us today. We're presenting today from Campbell River, which is in the traditional territory of the Wet'suwet'en Nation. And indeed, 70%. Yeah, I know. Sorry, Amy's saying to me, you can barely hear me. Can people hear me? Yep. Yep. Okay, thank you. And indeed, 70% of our marine production is based. I'm still getting messages. People can't hear me. Can I get some thumbs up?
So you're coming through a bit kind of I don't know, about a bit cloudy. But the solution might be for others to try to use headphones on theirs, because if you're trying to listen to you through a laptop, then that might make it more difficult.
Yeah, I was fiddling with this earlier, but you know what? I'm going to let Brock, make sure Brock can be heard. I'm really quick, so I'll talk loudly, and hopefully you can hear what I'm saying. 70% of our marine production is based in a House of Nations territory in Clifford Sound. CERMAC Canada has made a very public commitment to the principles of UNDRIP and to sound environmental practices and innovation, which leads to what will be presented today. And I just wanted to lay that kind of platform before Brock came out to talk about our innovation and why we're doing it and where we're doing it and how it looks. And I also want to say that I have quite a bit of family in Port Alberni as well. Okay, I'm hearing you're not hearing any of it. Okay, all right. Let's hand it over, Amy.
Thanks, Linda.
Yeah.
So hopefully everybody can hear me okay. What you see in front of you before we kind of get into the nitty gritty is exactly what a semi-closed cage that we're introducing into our operations in Tofino looks like. So in the foreground is a typical installation, and this is the one that's in our Norwegian counterparts installation. In behind is a typical control cages that we would have as a part of our kind of working experiment into this technology and the introduction of this technology into our systems. So maybe Amy, if we can go to the next one. So, you know, what do we see here? You don't see much from the surface. It looks very much like a traditional cage, but below the surface, there's quite a bit. So the major components of one of these semi-closed cages is a steel floater. And as you can see, it was very similar to a traditional cage, circular cage. However, this one is got a lot more equipment hanging off of it and is quite a bit more beefy. It's made out of thick-walled steel tubing. And from there, we've got a large poly bag, so it's a thick tarp material hanging from our suspending from that floating collar. And inside that poly bag is a net. So the fish still live in a net inside the bag. To put water into the bag, we have 4 inlet pipes, and those 4 inlet pipes are driven by 35 kilowatt pumps, which pump the water into the bag. And those pumps are the pumps that hold the bag's rigidity. So the water level inside the bag is actually higher than the ocean level. And it's that positive pressure that maintains the rigidity in the bag. So this is essentially, for the lack of a better explanation, a large floating flow-through hatchery. So as such, we need to be able to monitor the water quality inside the bag. And that's where we do have some ability to manipulate what's happening inside the closed cage environment. We have O2 sensors, pH sensors, salinity, turbidity, water level, and above water and below water cameras. And these are all designed to help the farmers on site do what they need to do to optimize the conditions or the rearing conditions inside the bag. Now, because this is a little bit more involved and we're not relying solely on Mother Nature for the movement of water and the replenishment of oxygen, we need a small support barge that has the capabilities of supplying power and O2 to the bag, as well as containing all the operating systems required to run the closed cage. So we want to go to the next one, Amy. So why did we move into this space? Why are we moving in now? Well, these are customizable, so we can really adapt these to the specific sites that we have, both on the physical and biophysical end of things. So we can look at the water conditions at a specific site, the depth, the dissolved oxygen characteristics, and really build the technology in and around that specific area. It offers us greater control with manipulating and designing around those depths. We can actually work to eliminate some of the challenges that we have in normal net pen aquaculture, algae, sea lice, and the likelihood of the introduction of incidental catch. It is semi-closed, so that then reduces the interaction between wild and farm populations. And it's adaptable, and this is the nice thing is it can be adapted to the sites where Cermak already operates. So we're continuing to operate in the communities and the areas that we operate today. And the whole benefit is, because we've got greater control, we hope to improve fish performance. And the trial results in the cage that I showed you initially, we have seen improved fish performance and overall welfare of the fish inside the closed cage. So, it's an expensive venture, and we have to measure the overall benefit. So that's what we want to do over the next couple of years in the Tofino region, is trial the system to become or to measure whether or not we can deliver on some of these things that the system is designed to do with regards to the elimination of harmful algae, sea lice, and reducing that potential interaction between wild and farm populations. Things that we need to learn about too, though, is dissolved oxygen levels. We have been oxygenating our sea pens for quite a while, but this is a closed system or a semi-closed system, so that there's going to be more onus on us to do that well. And overall, we need to develop and deliver on the benefits. One of these cages costs 5 times more than a traditional net pen system, so we need to be able to deliver the fish performance and the welfare benefits in order to make it economically viable. Next one, Amy. So what did we learn in Norway? Well, this is the same picture from a different angle of the installation we have in Norway. It's a little bit smaller than what we've had, but we've owned it for 2 years, and we put 2 groups of fish through, and we've just actually entered our 3rd group of fish. The first cycle, we took a bit of a conservative approach and put in about 170,000 fish. The second cycle, which finished this spring, we put in 400,000 fish. In both cases, we saw very similar results. We saw greater fish growth. We saw no need for sea lice treatments, and really no mechanical or operational challenges. And overall, the welfare of the salmon inside the cages, regardless of the number of fish that we put in, was the same or better than the control cages around. Next one, Amy. So in terms of the assembly process, we partnered with Canadian Maritime Engineering, CME in Port Alberni, to do the assembly of the pipe sections that comprise the floater, the individual sections were prefabricated in Europe, but obviously the scale and the size of the assembly required us to put those pieces together. It took 10 weeks of fabrication. We had fabricators locally as well as some experts from Norway come over to help out with that process. So a lot of man hours put into this. We launched the floater using RKM, a local crane company, just at the end of August, and started towing it to our Miller Channel site in Tofino. I want to emphasize the fact, though, that this project, even though we're coming to the latter stages before we're actually putting fish into ours, the work began back in 2017, leading up to our decision to actually purchase one of these in 2020. As I mentioned, it's very adaptable to our area, so we had to do a lot of pre-work to make sure that the design characteristics of the closed cage met the environment that we were putting it in. We wanted to make sure that we set ourselves up for success, making sure that we really focused on the size and the specifications of all the critical aspects of this closed cage to make sure that we were able to eliminate the algae and the sea lice, and because what works in Norway may not work in Canada. So we've now gone through the assembly phase. We're now just in the last final commissioning, ready for stock, probably middle of November. And we will learn about how we can adapt this technology better into our operations working into the summer or spring and summer of 2022, when that group of fish that we're entering in November would be slated for harvest. So we want to go to the next one, Amy. So just a couple pictures of what the operation entailed. In the top left, or the upper left corner, we have an aerial photo of the floater making its way to Tofino. Top right portion is the actual closed cage bag being offloaded in Tofino. So this is a fairly large piece of equipment and a fairly large crane offloading that. Below, we've got some pictures of some of the equipment being installed. The one in the middle is the actual installation of the inlet pipe. So you can see this is quite large. Those pipes are 1 meter in diameter and 27 meters deep. So a large piece of equipment that is being deployed. And then we've got some of the other inlet pumping equipment. And those are actually the pump housings, the 35 kilowatt pumps that you see on the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, next one, Amy. And there we go, that's it. We got through that quick. Hopefully I occupied most of my 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was quite good. Now let's go to any comments, questions, and answers. And first off, let's test Linda first. Can
you hear me?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, I switched. I have a
so
desk speaker. I just switched my hardware. So sorry about that. I apologize.
No worries. I just wanted to make sure it worked out. So I saw Director Bodner, and I missed other folks. Bodner, Steer, and Roberts. So please go ahead, Director Bodner.
Thank you. I have lots of questions. In essence, this is fish farming. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what I would like to know is how many fish you would have in there. Like, would they be young fish and they would be growing to maturity inside? Is that correct?
Yeah. So the production plan for this particular phase of the project is a little intricate, because basically what we're trying to do is validate where we can get the most benefit out of this to insert this type of technology into our operation. So we will be taking fish to, we're going to enter about 400,000 fish into the closed cage at 100 grams. So typical smolt entry as you would see in a normal net pen environment.
Small fish.
And at certain intervals, we'll take fish out and put them into our net pens adjacent to this closed cage. And the layout is much like what you see in those initial pictures that I showed. The idea there is we're trying to gauge whether or not this technology works best as a post-smolt facility or a complete grow out. So there'll be 3 or 4 different cohorts of fish coming out of this closed cage, and at each stage we'll determine what the best fit is to move forward in this space based on the production benefits.
So, but also regarding the species, what species of fish would you be putting in here?
Atlantic salmon.
Really?
Cermak Canada only grows Atlantic salmon, as the vast majority of salmon farms do in Canada. Yeah.
And what happens if there happens to be a big storm, you know, where that may be detrimental to the fish that are in there?
So
Well, yeah.
this is all part of the pre-work that's been done. So we've actually installed this in a pre-existing farm site, which we obviously have a lot of knowledge about, but there's a lot of engineering that goes into the mooring, the equipment, and we've stationed this particular installation at a site that meets the siting criteria for the technology as it sits today. So that's gone through a large engineering scrutiny in order to site it at the location that we've chosen.
One last question then, why Atlantic salmon?
I can answer that if you like. So I've been salmon farming since the late 80s, and actually was on farms that used to be in the Port Alberni region. And we did start with Pacific salmon, so Chinook, coho, and internationally Atlantic salmon has been the salmon that was domesticated earliest. And I always like to use a farming analogy because I grew up on a terrestrial farm. I kind of compare Atlantic salmon to kind of like a Hereford of the cow world, because they are relatively quieter fish. They grow faster, there's a higher yield in them as well. Fast growth, pretty stable personalities. They've been bred. There's quite a extensive breeding programs around the world. So they're quite domesticated. They can be more disease resistant, and they can also be more resistant to certain types of plankton and certain conditions that you have. So you can pick certain species, but the truth is we have tried growing Chinook and coho and even sockeye in the 80s and early 90s with not much success. It doesn't mean that it can't be done, but Atlantic salmon are able to be grown at slightly higher densities and be handled more easily. So they're just a more suitable fish for salmon farming, and they've been bred to those conditions as well. That's not to say that people don't successfully raise Chinook salmon, because we have an example. One of our neighbors up in Clayoquot region, Creative Salmon, has a smaller organic Chinook salmon operation, which they grow, but the vast majority of farm salmon supplied to the marketplace worldwide is Atlantic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have Director Steer and Roberts next. Is there anyone else? Director Cole and Director Cote. Thank you. Please go ahead, Director Steer.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Brock, for the presentation. I appreciate you've already come to Tofino. I had a question regarding the federal government, as I'm sure you're aware, has moved in a direction to have the industry into a transitional phase by 2025. And I'm wondering if this technology is part of that transition plan, or is this something completely different?
It's not, I guess it's not different if they're looking at innovation going forward. However, we were looking at this as a company well before that policy platform was announced. So, and you didn't hear my introduction, but I had said that, about 70% of our operation is in a housed territory. We very publicly commit to the principles of UNDRIP and good environmental stewardship and innovation. So this more reflects our work in that space than the federal policy, but I can see how there would be harmonization on some of those thinkings going forward.
Thank you. And just to follow up with that in mind, then, is there movement within CIRMAC to move towards that a closed containment, fully closed containment system that I suspect is what the direction the federal government is implying? Is that proceeding in Clayoquot Sound at this time as well?
I think it's too early for us to make those kind of commitments because we haven't had our full consultation with the federal government yet on what they mean by a transition plan or a responsible plan by 2025. I think to be very transparent, our biggest concern if there was a push to move to land-based aquaculture at this point in time, just the location probably would not be in some of these more remote coastal areas. I'm sure it would be closer to our marketplace. So we need to factor all those things in with a really good understanding of what the environmental risk is and what the benefits is of both technologies. And I believe those will be the conversations that we have going forward. And the other important leadership that we'll be having those discussions with, of course, are the House It leadership. So that's another important component. So I think it's too early for us at this point to be making real big declarations about that. As a as a longtime salmon farmer and Brock as well, we don't want to ever say that there's no such thing as a bad technology. It just depends how you're going to apply it and where you're going to apply it and what the business model is around it. The other big focus we have at CIRMAC is around climate action and climate response. So, we're looking at our whole value chain and our production methods to look at where we can have improvements in that area. Cost benefits decisions. So there's a lot of things to consider when we're looking at that. It's a big shift for this industry to be able to achieve by 2025. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Next up, I have Director Roberts and then Director Cole.
Yes, thank you for that, Linda, and also Brock. I think most of my questions have been answered. However, I understand that there's a lot of fish farming going on in China, clearly, and coho and steelhead and so on and so forth. And I understand these pens are floating pens, say, within a lake. Are you aware of this, and is there any direction for you folks in that regard? Thank you.
Well, I'm aware of lake culture, and actually in different parts of the world. I've farmed in many different areas and been to very many different areas. And it is possible, I suppose, in certain lakes that could happen. It's not a plan that we have. I've seen it done elsewhere. I don't know if you want to add to that, Brock, at this point. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, what I see in a lot of those lake installations is not much different than what we're doing today. I mean, I know down in Chile, a lot of the early rearing was done in lakes. So part of the hatchery production of fish before entering into sea was done in lakes. And, those are traditional net pens in lakes. So, you then have the same perceived challenges as you would in the ocean with regards to deposition, the interactions between the native populations of fish in that lake and the farm population. So it's just a different method, and what you end up having is the same conversation. So kind of back to some of the earlier discussions about this particular technology is we felt that it was important not only for the betterment of the fish that we rear in the Tofino area, but to get into the ground floor and actually work with the suppliers of these to improve them as well. We have to remember that there's a lot of the solutions that everybody's seeking are not commercially available. They're all in some sort of developmental phase, and that's the same with this. And I think that we will be working with the supplier to improve some of the systems on here, and seeking areas where we can potentially install these to remove the reliance on diesel electric power, which then also affords the ability to look at things like closing it completely and dealing with some of the wastewater that is inherent in a system like this. And I guess to kind of comment, we have a local producer growing steelhead in Lois Lake. So we're very familiar with that. I haven't set foot on that facility, but it's very much like what you see in the pictures that I've presented today.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in Lois Lake in my past career. Yeah.
Okay, I think the next person we have up is Director Cole and then Director Cote.
My query is answered. Thank you.
Great. Director Cote.
Thank you. Thanks for this presentation. It's quite interesting. A couple questions through the chair. How many nets are you planning to put out there?
Well, this is a single unit for the first phase of this trial.
Okay, so then how many phases would there be?
Well, what we'll do is the goal of the trial phase or the pilot phase would determine what the best fit for our production needs are using this particular technology, and it can expand anywhere from having, as I mentioned, a post-smolt facility where we're entering fish and growing them half their generation in this and the other half in open net pens, or a full transition into these particular types of rearing environments. It all depends on the benefits that we see and some of the financial backing that we would need to move or transition to something like this full scale. But all those business reviews have been done, and they've got varying degrees of economic viability.
But we're very much looking at this as a commercial, trial. Like we're very much, kicking the tires on this. It isn't just a trial or a pilot. Like we really want to test this out in our conditions for commercial applications. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, filtration through a bag like that. A lot of the nets are open, so the debris or just flows through. So is this technology one that could be transferred on land? Because I know there's been talk about having farms on land.
I think this technology is well supported by being in the ocean, this specific technology. I think if you were going to a land base, you would be going to more of a tank facility with full water treatment supporting infrastructure. So it would be much more power hungry, energy hungry than the system. So what we're looking at is, I wouldn't call it a hybrid, but it is kind of taking the best of a couple different approaches to salmon farming and then reducing some of the more material risks to our fish and to wild salmon, while still having some of the localized impacts that you would have with normal net pen farming, but then not having the energy consumption or the need to have the kind of land base that you would require with land-based farming. So it's a bit of a, I wouldn't say compromise, but it's finding some middle ground and experimenting with that and see how we can maybe keep jobs in the Clayoquot region, and how we can keep an operation there that is acceptable to a housing leadership, which is acceptable to the community and stakeholders, and minimizes any threat to wild salmon, and is manageable from an impact perspective. So keep those important jobs and keep the economy, and just keep an open mind on what we might be able to achieve through innovation. That's a real big motivation for us.
Okay, thank you, Linda and Brock.
Great. Are there any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none. On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. It was a lot of good information, and hopefully there's continually more communication and information coming our way every quarter or so.
Thank you so much for having
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
And for the great questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Okay, that brings us to item D, and this will be for Ms. Michelle Hall of the Surfrider Canada and regarding circular tourism. So thank you and welcome, and please take it away when you're ready.
Thanks for having me. I'm just going to share my screen. Give me a moment. Oops. Okay. Can someone indicate if they can see my screen okay?
No, we cannot.
You can't see it. Okay.
So are you on your Zoom program, or just click on the green square, the green button, and then you should be able to pick your presentation and then it'll come up.
Yeah.
Julia, you might need to enable multiples or enable her to do it. There we go. There we go.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks for talking me through it.
No worries.
Okay. Secular tourism proposes that a secular economy can reform tourism through sustainable waste management systems. So I volunteered with the Surfrider Foundation for over 5 years, including over 300 beach cleanups that collected data that have informed the campaigns and programs that have developed upstream solutions for preventing plastic pollution. Like many people here on the call, I live on the coast, I survive by, work on, play on, and that's why I feel really passionately to be part of these conservation solutions. Hence choosing circular tourism as my research for my master's program. It encompasses all of my experience at Surfrider, as well as my personal experience as someone who lives by the coast. So globally, tourism will reach 1.8 billion travelers by 2030 and develop social, cultural, and economic opportunities. It's the third largest financial industry in the world, and it collects 10% of the worldwide GDP. However, tourism is consumptive and negatively impacts the socio-ecological systems and exhausts resources. The tourism industry has an opportunity to transform by implementing circular economy, recovering key resources, and developing stakeholder synergies that benefit the economy and protect the environment. So a circular economy doesn't deplete resources and can be perpetuated indefinitely without any accumulation of waste in the environment. It recognizes waste as a resource and recirculates materials as either biological nutrients for living systems or technical nutrients as feedstock for manufacturing. It's rooted in 3 principles: regenerate natural systems, design out pollution and waste, and keep products and materials in use. My research was focused on these 3 questions, and currently the research on circular tourism is limited. So real-world examples from circular economy experts in Europe were used, as well as using Tofino as a case study to transition to circular tourism. So what did the literature say? Well, a circular economy decouples economic growth from the consumption of finite resources, recirculating a flow of materials in a closed loop system with no accumulation of waste. The 4 key areas of resource recovery that are vital to transition are water, energy, materials, and food. Circular innovation at scale must include increasing the durability and recyclability of products, improving collection systems, and implementing industrial symbiosis to capture waste as a resource. Stakeholders must share this information downstream, as well as connect stakeholders upstream who understand product design and develop infrastructure necessary to recover those resources. So my research pinned these actions to direct the shifts: treating waste as a resource that can be recovered, provide decent employment in waste diversion systems and resource recovery, shift the consumer culture by increasing incentives for reuse, recycling, and repair, develop synergies that circulate organic byproducts, harmonizing policy frameworks for waste, and source and cycle materials within a local context, and build infrastructure that circulates those resources and decentralize the materials economy. Finally, by educating urban planners, communities, universities, to rethink the systems needed for these solutions to thrive. However, we know that a circular economy isn't a one-size-fits-all approach, and the technology is still emerging. So in Tofino, I used Tourism Tofino, ACRD, District of Tofino, Clackup Biosphere Trust, and Surfrider Stats to come up with some interesting stats. Most of you might already know this, but the ACRD reported that waste production on the West Coast was 598 kilograms per capita in 2018, with a goal of 350 kilograms per capita. The diversion rates at the West Coast landfill are low at 10%, and in 2019, 6,278 tons of waste was landfilled, costing approximately $950,000. The landfill has a projected closure of 2062, with a cost of $5.6 million if operations continue business as usual. A study was conducted by the ACRD to report the highest volume of landfilled materials, which was organics, construction and demolition, plastics, and textiles. And in 2019, 80% of all waste was commercial, and 2,719 tons of that was estimated to have been divertible. However, the ACRD does have upcoming initiatives for waste reduction, including data, education, organics, collection, and circular economy initiatives, which is fantastic. So in a nutshell, we know that food is a central product for tourism destinations. Food waste from the tourism sector is an opportunity to apply circular economy principles for resource recovery. And we've just noted that the ACRD does have plans to implement a program in 2021, which is great. Construction waste is the second highest category by volume and signals an opportunity for waste to be designed out of construction by using materials that can be disassembled and reused, or whose technical nutrients can be used again. Plastics were recorded as the third highest composition, signaling more opportunities for policy frameworks and circular economy initiatives to recover those resources. And textiles were reported as the fourth highest volume, signaling opportunity for textile recovery and recycling into yarn. Industrial symbiosis is a term that's used to explain the flow of byproducts between stakeholders, which turn waste into food for other business. So keeping products in use will reduce the landfill costs, as reported previously. In 2018, Tofino had 600,000 visitors, and 95% of which reported the beach as their primary activity. And a main concern within the communities is marine pollution and action on ocean conservation. The Surfrider Foundation collected 39 tons of debris over 2 years, reporting that 90% of that debris was plastic. So using circular economy principles to prevent the marine pollution, including plastic waste, is vital for the tourism economy, which was valued at 295 million in 2018. The District of Tofino notes that building resilience for tourism in Tofino is a key action for their strategic plan for 2019 to 2022. So in summary, the key circular economy principles are to design out waste and pollution, to preserve and enhance natural capital, to keep the products and resources in use and regenerate natural systems, removing negative externalities. The key resources that we're looking at are on the screen, and by redirecting the annual costs for waste disposal to waste diversion programs, Tofino could keep resources in the economy, decrease pollution and greenhouse gases, and provide new opportunities for materials and services. So this requires governments at all levels to implement regulations that support transitioning to a circular economy by redesigning waste management systems to recover those key resources. And the collaboration and synergy between the private and public sector are a foundational aspect of a circular economy. So a vision for circular tourism, these have been centered on the principles we've just talked about and are strengthened by my research, and they're specific to Tofino, the focus areas that have been noted from the stakeholders, and just form a starting point for a transition. And there's 20 altogether, but there's certain ones that apply to the ACRD, and they include assessment, developing a criteria for circular economy according to the business sector, turning the landfill zone into a resource and repair center, which would regenerate that whole area into a renewable resource and repair hub that recovers 100% of the key resources that have been identified by the ACRD. It becomes a one-stop shop for the recycling items identified by Surfrider in the Ocean Friendly Business Program. There involve ACRD involvement in an eco-industrial park, which would be creating a setup for industrial symbiosis where one business's waste is fuel for another. Plastics economy, where plastics are redesigned, repaired, reused, refilled, and recycled. Supporting circular organics, which is where food and organic waste are collected and composted or used as biofuel for transportation. Textiles, so textile waste is recycled as yarn. Packaging services, end-of-life packaging feeds compost systems and regenerates those food systems in green spaces. Reskilling and rethinking for a circular economy workforce, sharing that knowledge on a digital platform hub, and inspiring people to live like a local. So working with Tourism Tofino to influence visitor behavior by creating these circular economy social norms. So what next? The social ecological integrity of the environment within tourism communities does need protecting in order to sustain the economic benefits of tourism, and the key resources for solid waste are vital to recover in a circular economy. I commend the ACRD for working with Surfrider and other stakeholders to continue the bold transformations that are needed for a circular economy, and I welcome the opportunity to dive deeper into the recommendations with the ACRD. Thank you.
Good timing. Okay, so that brings us to any questions and comments from the board. So that was quite a good presentation. We'll start with Director Steer, and then we'll go after that, and then Director Cole.
Thank you, Sharon. I'm usually used to seeing Michelle walking on the beach and with our dogs together, so it's a little different venue to see her today. I want to thank Surfrider and Michelle for the presentation today and the work she's done. We have a very, through Tofino, but also with the ACRD, a great relationship with Surfrider, and the work that Michelle is doing is certainly helping us to inform, as she pointed out in her presentation, many of the areas that we're looking at, specifically right now with our landfill and a lot of the diversion projects that the ACRD is working on in conjunction. So basically, I didn't have many questions. It was a very thorough presentation. Just wanted to thank Surfrider and Michelle for their contributions to the ACRD and to the District of Tofino.
Thanks, Tom.
Great. So I have Director Cole next.
Hi, I am noting that last night at District of Ucluelet meeting of council, we were going to hear from Lily. Was it going to be, and we didn't, I'm not sure. Are we going to be hearing a similar report or topic of discussion at our next council meeting in Ucluelet?
Yeah, so Ucluelet, I mean, I mentioned Tofino a lot in my presentation because it was just to refine the scope of my research topic for my program. But this is definitely disseminated across to Ucluelet as well. I think Lily is going to present on the federal action announcement and some opportunities for the District of Ucluelet to take part in some of the programs that are happening for the Ocean Friendly Business Program and Take Back the Tap. If you haven't heard about it, that's the next big campaign for Surfrider, which are going to eliminate plastic water bottles from Ucluelet and Tofino.
Awesome, thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, I'd like to thank you for your presentation and hope to hear from you again. Oh, okay. So before we move on to item 6, which is correspondence for action, I just want to let everyone know that my wife is currently stuck in traffic far away from the house, and my daughter is due to be at the bus stop at about 2:40. So I'm wondering if we could have a resolution for when I disappear for someone to take over temporarily. They won't let her off the bus unless somebody's there to meet her. So I'm hoping maybe Director Cote or Director McNabb would be able to do so until I get back. But it would require a resolution. It might be easier for Director Cote or someone with a computer. It's hard to chair running off of an iPad, and I'm not certain if Director McNabb is running off a computer or an iPad.
Do you want me to make a motion then?
Yeah, does anyone have a preference? Director McNabb? Oh, you're muted.
I'm actually running 2 laptops, so I have an agenda separate. But I'd move that Director Cote fill in for chair while Director Jack is away.
Seconded.
Thank you, Director McCarthy. And comments, questions? Seeing none, thank you for this. It's kind of an emergency. Okay, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. All right, so when I disappear, Director Cote, if you would, that would be appreciated. And thank you very much. Okay, but that brings us to the next item. Item 6 is a correspondence for action, which is a request for a letter of support from the Tishat First Nations in regards to supporting ISIP funding for a new SOMAS hall. So I don't know who would speak to this, but it's pretty self-evident. So perhaps we don't need anyone from staff. Director Haggard and then Director Cote.
Thank you. I'd like to move that the ACRD Board of Directors forward a letter to the Shuswap First Nation supporting their application for ISAP funding to replace and build a new mess hall.
Do we have a
Second.
second? Thank you, Director Cote. Did you have a follow-up comment, Director Cote?
I do. I just see in this request that the letter was expected by Thursday, October the 1st. Is this too late?
I'm uncertain that it's necessarily too late. It depends on when ISIP looks at the application. So this is something that I was more comfortable doing rather than just signing it and moving it on. Although we may want to look at a kind of a blanket resolution in the future, just to allow for any kind of harmless letters of support, because the past 3 asks for letters of support from Dishot were kind of under the gun, and I think that had to do with like managing their grant applications and whatnot. So it should still be helpful, I think. Director Shannon, did you have a comment? Oh, still.
Trying to sort out my computer. Yeah, I did just have a question. I know that the funding they're looking for is under the community level, so that's why it was the October 1st deadline. My question was, if it was under the rural communities one that we further in the agenda are applying for, would we still support another person looking for grant money when we're applying for the same funding? Like, I know this one's different, but for future reference.
I don't know. I think that would be taken on a case-by-case basis, and okay. That's definitely, I think, an in-camera conversation. I think,
okay.
Yeah, but
okay.
Yeah, I would take it as a case-by-case basis.
And then I just had a suggestion. I don't know if we want to amend this to maybe include to shot, like, because this is past the October 1st deadline that they had to have it in, with maybe a friendly reminder of how our processes work and when our board meetings are, just so they have some more information for future letter tests.
I think normally they're aware of it, but due to the fact that they're in the middle of an election, but we should maybe say something in the email as we send our reply. Are there any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, thank you for that. That brings us to item 7, which is correspondence for information. Was there anything anyone would like to pull out? There's one thing I would. All right, Director Beckett, I think I'm going to preempt you and say I'd like to pull out item E. On behalf of our nation, we are recognizing the monumental effort that Director Beckett himself had contributed to the effort to get the improvements to the Banfield Road. And personally, I'd like to thank him for everything he's done, but on behalf of the nation as well. And please go ahead, Director Beckett.
Thank you, Chair Jack. It's very generous and kind of the Hawaiian Nation. I actually was going to pull it out because this was a collaborative effort, and I'd be remiss if I did not acknowledge all of the work that and advocacy of those that came before, certainly me, the Banfield Community Affairs Society, Banfield Road Safety Association, and more recently, my colleagues, the directors, all of the directors of the ACRD and staff for getting on board, for meeting in Vancouver, for supporting me and encouraging me to do what was right, and that was to advocate for our community and for the region. So thank you for your kind words, and to all of my colleagues and staff, thank you for your support.
Great. Thank you. Are there any other items to pull out or comment? Seeing none, we can have a motion to receive. Thank you, Director Shannon, seconded by Director Roberts. Did you have a comment as well, Director Roberts? No? Okay. All right. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so I will stop myself when we hit about 2:35 and disappear, but we'll just keep going until I do that. Item 8A is a request for a decision regarding the Salmon Beach Asset Management Plan version 1. I'm assuming that this is Terry. Hi, Terry. Please go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, so the Salmon Beach Asset Management Plan is slightly different than the other plans that we've created to date, as this actually is for 6 services. So the Salmon Beach area has 6 separate services to run: sewer, water, transportation, which is maintenance of their roads, garbage, security, and recreation. And instead of all being done under one bylaw, there's 6. But because it was all the same taxpayers, it made the most sense for us to kind of combine them into a plan. So this plan has been presented to the Salmon Beach Committee, and they supported the board adopting it, and will be used by the committee as well as by staff to engage with the public moving forward, as there's a few services that there may be some changes in level of service moving forward.
Sorry, someone has to do it all the time. There is a motion attached. Does anyone have any comments or questions before we get there? Director Roberts, please go ahead.
Just that I would like the Alberni Clay Quad Regional Board of Directors adopt this Salmon Beach Asset Management Plan version 1.
Okay, moved by Director Roberts. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Director Cote. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Alrighty, great. That brings us to the Aberdeen Golf Club. Still you, Terry, I think. No? Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yep. So the Alberni Valley Golf Club, as well as the Long Beach Recreational Cooperative that runs the Long Beach Golf Course, apply for tax exemption status every year. So we do this bylaw once a fall to provide them tax exemption, not just from regional district taxes, but actually from provincial taxes as well, as is we are able to do under the Local Government Act, as they are a not-for-profit organizations. So this would be a bylaw that requires 4 readings and 2/3 of the votes in favor, and then we submit it to BC assessment.
Okay. Shall we get started? Director McNabb, please go ahead.
So I've moved that the Alberni Claycott Regional District Board of Directors give first reading to bylaw cited as 2021 tax exemption bylaw number F1150.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Director Cote. Comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried.
And I'd move that Alberni Clayquat Regional District Board of Directors give second reading to bylaw cited as 2021 tax exemption bylaw F1150.
Second.
Thank you, Director
Roberts.
Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried.
I move that the Alberni Clayquat Regional District Board of Directors give third reading to bylaw cited as 2021 tax exemption bylaw F1150.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Oh, Director Roberts. Okay. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. And finally,
I'd move that Alberni Clayquat Regional District Board of Directors adopt bylaw cited as 2021 tax exemption bylaw number F1150.
thank you. Seconded by Director Bodner. Any comments? Seeing, Director McDonald, please go ahead.
Yeah, just to say that both of these organizations are a huge benefit to the community, and especially in the time of pandemic like we've got, their survival is really hinged on this type of support. So I certainly support having them continue this tax exemption. I wish there was a way that we could sort of perpetuate it without it coming back to the board every year, but that's not the way it works. So thanks.
Thank you. And as stated, now that I know it's not a conflict of interest, I'm probably going to go join. Alrighty. So with that, I think what I'm going to do is disappear, Director Cote. So if you would kindly take
Okay.
over, thank you very much. And I'll be back in 10, 15 minutes.
We haven't voted on the last of that, I don't think.
Oh, my apologies. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay. There we
Okay,
go.
thank you. On to request for decision, BC Transit 3-year expansion initiatives. So that would be Terry, I imagine.
I can speak to that, Madam Chair.
Okay, Mr. Holmes.
The BC Transit is requesting that we reconfirm the intention to partner on these matters. They're in various stages. The West Coast conventional transit is really just getting going, and the next steps are to look for an operator, et cetera, and vehicle maintenance and all that kind of activity. And then in the Alberni Valley, expansion of conventional transit and custom transit, there's discussions about modifying those that again will take significant work as well, but that's a modification of existing services as opposed to the creation of new services. With our staffing absence right now, the GM of community services is a post that's empty right now, and that's a staff person that would normally work on that. We have some challenges getting at that, but we're actively recruiting at this time, and we would be prepared to re-engage with BC Transit once that posting is filled. So it's really up to the board to give us direction as to and confirmation to BC Transit is to confirm that these are still matters that are important to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Director McNabb and Director Shannon.
So just to say that we are really, really a long ways away from a conclusion on the Alberni Valley transit expansion, and the cost figures that initially were proposed really are totally unrealistic. And so, I mean, while I support the discussion, at this point in time, I really don't see a possibility of using this system for expansion of transportation in the rural areas of the Alberni Valley. I mean, we could pay taxi fees and be far less than what the proposal for this is. And so, as I said, I support the discussion, but we're a long ways away from conclusion.
Would staff like to comment on that?
Madam Chair, I think that the important part to focus on is the potential expansion, and the board is well within its rights to have a full and detailed discussion with the community in partnership with BC Transit, and conclude that it's not worth pursuing. It's not worth changing the system. It's not worth expanding, et cetera. So that is a completely legitimate outcome of these discussions should the board pursue.
Thank you. Director Shannon?
Thank you. My thought after reading this is kind of similar to Director McNabb's. I like the option considered on page 88 to delay putting resources into the potential expansion in the Alberni Valley for a year, and not have to potentially bring in another contractor to, if we're looking at getting both done right away. Just in the light of everything that's going on right now and struggling businesses and potentially more tax requisition to get that done, I would rather focus on the West Coast because that's kind of already rolling, and then bring this up again next fall to then look again at the potential of the Alberni Valley. I'm not saying no, I'm just saying I like the idea of waiting a year before we start those discussions. And I think especially with how communication with the public can be tricky right now with COVID, that doing public engagement and stuff, we might have a better opportunity a year from now. I mean, nobody can predict the future, but that's where I'm coming from for this.
Okay, I have Director Bodner, Director Cole. Okay.
Thank you. I agree with Director Shannon. I think that we need to slow down here and deal with what's on the table now that we can work out, and to leave this for at least another year. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Cole. And then I had Director Roberts and Stair.
So when I read through this and I see the recommendation, and I feel as though if we're not supporting that recommendation, that means that the West Coast part, of course, that was the point that they're saying that that's the next step to go. I still feel strongly that that is something that is really needed, anticipated, and looking forward to on the West Coast. Am I reading everything wrong in anticipating that if this recommendation isn't made, that scheduling for the West Coast portion will not be in line as it has been until now?
Mr. Holmes, can you answer? Thank you.
Madam Chair, what we would be suggesting is that the board would be very specific in its resolution if it wants to do something other than what's recommended. And that would be being specific about confirm the 3-year plan with respect to conventional transit on the West Coast and potential custom transit expansion, but to defer the examination of potential expansion of the Alberni Valley conventional transit until 2024.
Okay, thank you. I have Director Roberts and then Stair.
Yeah, through the chair to Mr. Holmes, do we have any update as to the West Coast Transit Service? They're talking about a selection of an operator and so on and so forth. And so I guess that at this point we no longer have any knowledge, or have no knowledge of an updated financial implication. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, that is correct. It's the next step is to confirm this work, and then that the finding of a operator and going through that identification process with BC Transit would give the board that data.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you, Director Stair.
Thank you, through the chair. I think Director Coles had my question in mind, but I was still unclear as to if we were able to include the West Coast Transit Service with a deferral on the other motion on the table, if that would be that we would still be able to proceed moving forward for the West Coast, the conventional service on the West Coast.
That is correct. Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Director McNabb. Can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. Now we're on. I would make a motion that the Alberni-Claycourt Regional District Board of Directors confirm that the BC Transit 3-year expansion initiatives, except for the Alberni Valley expansion, and that we sign the letter from BC Transit dated September 16, 2020, with this deletion, or maybe we could put it that we want it put off for 2021 and reevaluated in 2022.
So that would be just a deferral of the second point?
The Alberni Valley component of this.
But that would include the increased taxi supplement and the West Coast.
No, the increased taxi supplement, I can live with that one, but because that was something we actually asked for previously. But the bus service to the rural areas of Alberni Valley is something I think we need to set beside this year and look at it next time. Is that a motion you can understand, whoever's taking minutes today? I don't know who that is.
I think we can work with that, Madam Chair, if there's a seconder.
I'll second.
Great. All right. Can we have the motion actually read out, please?
That quick.
I'll have to work on that with Doug, or Doug, do you have it?
If you'd like, I could take a crack at it. The Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors confirmed the BC Transit 3-year expansion plan for the implementation of a conventional transit on the West Coast, and for custom transit expansion to include some funds to increase taxi supplements to address unmet trips, but that the potential expansion of conventional transit in the Alberni Valley to the electoral areas study be deferred a further year.
Sure, that's what I said.
Excellent. Do I have and we have a seconder?
Didn't you write that down?
Okay. Director Roberts.
Yeah, seconded.
Okay, great. Is there any further comments or questions on the motion? I don't see any, so all in favor? Great, we're carried. Thank you. Next, we have a request for decision, the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Information Handling and Privacy Policy. And this is all unweighted vote. Director, or Mr. Holmes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The information and handling policy is a document that is often in place for local governments to accompany a FOI policies, as well as other types of documents. And it becomes actually, for the next item in the agenda, something that is important to have in place before the emergency support services agreement with the province can be considered. So what this talks about is how we handle private how we handle private information of individuals, and what we do if there's a breach, and defines what personal information may include, etc. So it's all quite plain language information, and we'd be pleased to answer any questions with the recommendation that the Board of Directors adopt the information handling policy as presented.
I'd just like to say thank you for this. I did take the seminar online for the Freedom of Information Act, and it was quite informative as to what our role is as elected officials, and how we're vulnerable. And I was hoping that staff would bring something forward. So great to see this. So is there any questions? I don't see any. Great. Okay, someone prepared to make the motion? Oh, Director McNabb.
I would move that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors adopt the information and handling privacy policy as presented.
Thank you. I have Director Johnson seconding. Is there any further questions or comments? Nope. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, on to the next. Request for decision. This is Emergency Support Services, Evacuee Registration and Assistance. Again, it's all weighted vote.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I can speak to this matter. So just a reminder about ESS services and what it provides. The ESS program provides help for people who've been displaced from their home due to an evacuation or an emergency. They offer services in accommodation, food. They provide emotional support, clothing, and family reunification. They do a lot more, but those are the primary services. Historically, ESS has been a paper-based program, and it's been offered in person. Over the last number of years, Emergency Management BC has been looking at this, and with the large wildfires that we've had, there's been a push to modernize this program. And in April of this year, they've done that. They've created this Evacuee Registration and Assistance Tool, ERA. So It's another tool in the ESS tool belt. It provides digital services, and it uses this online software. So some of the benefits is people are able to do self-registration. It expedites the referral process. It provides some basic reporting tools, and it's another advantage is that suppliers are able to process invoices online for quicker reimbursement. So by signing this agreement, this tool becomes a tool that the Alberni Valley is able to use as well with our ESS program. A number of other communities have already been using this tool, and it's been working well for them. So I see it only as a benefit to the ESS program to be able to help in a large scale event. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any questions.
Thank you for that. Director Shannon?
Thank you. Through the chair. Karen, I know you mentioned in your report for us for the meeting today that it's not replacing or intended to replace face-to-face or paper form processing. Is that going to kind of stay the level that it's at, or is it going to be a little bit harder to access? I know because like out where I am and certain areas of the valley that you're just not getting cell phone service or data to even access some of the stuff. So just to make sure that there's still options available easily, I guess, for these residents, or however that may still work.
Absolutely, thank you. ESS will be paper-based primarily for quite some time to come. This service is just another option when it's appropriate. There are times right now with COVID, it's being used a lot right now because you can't be face-to-face, or some people are choosing not to be face-to-face. Or another good use is when a mass evacuation was, so when there's a wildfire and there's thousands of people being displaced, it expedites the process. But face-to-face will always be likely the first choice because it offers just more than even the digital challenges it could have. It offers emotional support that evacuees may need in their time of need as well. So it definitely won't be replacing face-to-face, but it will be an addition, and it's another, like I say, another tool in the toolkit if we should need it.
Great, thank you. Director McNabb, or I'll pass it back to you, Chair Jack.
Thank you very much, Director Cote. Please go ahead.
I would move that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors enter into an agreement with Emergency Management BC to use evacuee registration and assistance tool.
Seconded by Director Roberts. Any comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. All right. Once again, thank you very much, Director Cote, for filling in. I'm really glad because my wife came after my daughter arrived. So, okay. So that brings us to item F, which is a license of occupation renewal for the Faber Road Fire Hall. Please go ahead, Heather.
Thanks. It's just simply a license of occupation renewal for 10 years. The Faber Road Fire Hall is on Ministry of Transportation right-of-way. So the term is for 10 years. It's $600 per year. Be happy to be answering any questions if you have any.
Director McNabb, please go ahead.
So why don't we just purchase this right away?
Well, I think there's some discussions about potentially reducing the number of fire halls in the Sprott Lake electoral area. So I think that discussion needs to take place. I also don't know that the fire department has the funds to make a purchase of that size.
Any other comments? Director Cote?
Thank you. I was just going to say, is this still called a fire hall because it's a fire garage?
I think it is.
Great. If there's no further, I'd like to make the motion.
Thank you, Director Cote. Do we have a second?
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I don't have to read it out. I think I should read it out because if there's people listening, that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors authorize the ACRD Chair and CAO to sign on their behalf to renew the license of occupation over a portion of the Faber Road for the purpose of housing the Faber Road Fire Hall for a period of 10 years commencing December 1st, 2020 for a fee of $600 per year plus GST. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And seconded by Director Shannon. Does anyone have any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item G, which is the West Coast Landfill Economic Analysis Report. Welcome back, Jenny. Please go ahead.
Thanks. We undertook a really detailed assessment of the West Coast landfill, looking at either closing the landfill and setting up a transfer station, or continuing to operate the landfill, which would require us to upgrade the leachate system to make sure that we were meeting our requirements and regulations. Sperling Hansen was an engineering firm that did the work, and they really drilled down and did a full life cycle cost assessment. We found that operating the landfill, even though it will be very expensive to make all those upgrades, is more cost effective. We also asked them to look at the greenhouse gas implications, and we feel that it is a minor benefit to continue to operate the landfill, as we're going to not have the transportation GHGs. And that's assuming that we have landfill gas capture at both landfills.
Great, thank you. Any comments? Questions? There's a motion there. Director Roberts, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, thank you, Jenny, for all your hard work on that. Very comprehensive report, and breaking it out into the various costs and so on is really important. I'd like to make the recommendation that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors continue to operate the West Coast landfill and proceed with the design of leachate collection and treatment system upgrades as required.
Second.
Thank you, Director Cole. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item H, the West Coast Landfill Oceans Legacy Oceans Plastics Recycling Depot Agreement. Did I say that right?
Close enough. We're working with Surfrider and Ocean Legacy Foundation to pilot a collection facility for rope and netting, and then all the abandoned plastics that we're collecting and recycling. This, as you heard earlier in the delegation, these are one of the most challenging products to deal with. And so Ocean Legacy has gotten some grant funding to set up basically a collection facility. It's going to be a couple sea cans with a cover, and it's going to allow us to store larger volumes of rope and netting, which we've been diverting for about a year now. And then we'll have collection there, and it's going to go to the mainland, and they have a research and development process happening right now to see if they can actually start recycling this material. It is very challenging to manage. The ACRD at the West Coast Landfill, as well as the Quathit Regional District, have these two pilot stations set up. We're hopeful that if we can make this system work, then it will be a template for the rest of the province moving forward. So we're asking to enter into an agreement with Ocean Legacy for the next 5 years to continue this project.
Great, thank you. Are there any comments or questions? And the motion, if you're reading it out, continues on to the next page as well. Director Roberts.
I'd like to make that motion. And prior to that, again, thank you, Jenny. Very in-depth report, and I like the idea that trucking companies are deadheading some of this stuff back, and instead of going back empty, they're carrying this, which is a really worthwhile project. Mm-hmm. I'd like to recommend that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors approve entering into an agreement with the Ocean Legacy Foundation for the Ocean Plastic Depot pilot project for the strategic collection and processing of abandoned, lost and discarded fishing gear at the West Coast Landfill for a term of 5 years, effective September 15th, 2020 to October 31st, 2025.
Second.
Thank you, Director Cole. Any comments or questions? All righty, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Awesome. Okay. That brings us to item I, the Salmon Beach Committee request to undertake the road maintenance plan, or a road maintenance plan.
We completed a comprehensive review of the roads and came up with a plan and cost estimates to bring the roads up to standard. Came up with a 5-year financial plan, presented that to the Salmon Beach Committee, and they're supportive of increasing the budget and moving forward with the road improvement plan.
So it looks as though there are two separate motions here that we have to do separately. I think it makes sense. Dr. Roberts, do you want to?
Yes, thank you. That the Salmon Beach Committee recommend that the Board of Directors instruct staff to work with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure to determine alternate options for the safe operation and maintenance standards of the Salmon Beach internal roads.
Great. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you, Director Shannon. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
And next, that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors approve the McGill Engineering Annual Road Maintenance Plan, and that the 2021 Salmon Beach transportation budget be increased from $158,700 to $229,700.
Second.
Thank you. I'll put Director McNabb. Any further comments, questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. Great. All right. Next up is item J, which is the request for decision regarding Crown Land tenure application for the Banfield water system. Go ahead.
We've actually had some discussion about this morning, and we would like to defer this report until we've had a chance for I think a development permit process to continue.
So this would be just tabling it until, I can't remember the date. Director Beckett, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to make the motion that the Crown tenure application be deferred to the November 12th board meeting.
November 12th, thank you. All right, so that's Director Beckett, and was that Director McNabb?
Yes.
Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. And then that brings us to the Beaver Creek Water System, Compton, Beaver Creek Water Road, Water Main Abandonment. And I think there may be a new recommended motion for this. I'm wondering if it could be explained.
Yes, so this is a small chunk of water main, and it parallels, well, it's actually on the boundary of the Beaver Creek Water Service area. The water main there is failing, and we're looking at a replacement cost of $300,000. This summer we had another failure, and we started a discussion with the city about looking at having them, basically their water line is right parallel beside ours, just moving the water services over to theirs. We continued that discussion and looked at costs, and it looks like it's going to cost us $80,000 as an alternative. We conferred with the Beaver Creek Committee via email, and they're all in support of this alternative. So we have made a request to do a financial plan amendment to do the work this year because we have city crews available, which is cost effective and high quality. But I neglected to put in a recommendation to enter into an agreement with them to do such work. So I would like to add a recommendation that the ACRD board authorize the CAO to enter into an agreement with the city of Port Alberni for the direct provision of those 9 services in this area.
So would that have to be a separate motion, or does that take a, so that would be a one afterwards? Okay, so the one that is on the agenda still counts, and then we'll do the authorize the CAO afterwards. Director McNabb, you had your hand up?
Yes, I'd move that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors approve financial plan amendment to allocate $80,000 in 2020 for the completion of the Compton Road, Beaver Creek Road Water Main Abandonment Project.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Director Cote. Any comments? Dr. Shannon, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Was there talk about what it's going to cost per residence being on city water versus being on the Beaver Creek?
Through the chair, this is from a resident's perspective, it will look the same. They will receive a bill based on their consumption. They'll be billed at our rates. From an administrative perspective, we will have separate, we'll be reading more meters, but the city will be billing us and we'll be billing the residents within the area.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. All right, and then the second motion is the ACRD Board of Directors authorize the CAO to enter into an agreement with the City of Port Alberni for the direct provision of water to 9 services on Compton and Beaver Creek Road.
So moved.
Thank you, Director McNabb.
Second.
Thank you, Director Cote. Any further comments? I'm glad we caught this. So with that in mind, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. All right, that brings us to item L, the log train trail. It's well. Please go ahead.
Yeah, this is a referral to provide a letter of support for Timber West to access the log train trail for log hauling.
You're one ahead. It's the one for Hoop Patches.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, we have 2 very similar requests for Hoop Hetcheset, and it is for forest-related activities. We'll be asking that they have third-party insurance for covering the ACRD, and we're going to be looking for some minimum expectations for the trail when they're done. So just making sure that they're maintaining the integrity of the trail.
Great, thank you. Dr. Bodner, please go ahead.
Thank you. 2 questions I wanted to ask. This involves also the next decision, the using of the log train trail. How much of an impact is this going to have on people using the log train trail? Is it going to be closed for a specific length of time? And just the effect that it's going to have on hikers and the use of the trail.
Through the chair, if there's any work that's being done that basically interrupts the ability to use the trail, then we request that they put up signage and do notification prior to. Also, oftentimes, especially if there's safety concerns, then we request that they have people on safety flaggers on site in order to make sure that the safety of the public is maintained.
Thank you. And I understand this one is just for the use of crossing the trail, not actually the next one. I'll bring up the next question. Thank you.
Great. Would you like Director Cote, please go ahead, and then Dr. Shannon.
Oh, I was going to make the motion.
Oh, yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors provide a letter of support for an industrial access permit for Hoopachasset First Nation to access the log train trail for log hauling and related forestry activities, subject to confirmation that the ACRD is covered by the applicant's third-party liability insurance.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Johnson. Dr. Shannon, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you. I had a question. It'll kind of apply to both this one and the next agenda item. When there's a minimum expectations document for the trail itself, does that include like the culverts or any water lines or anything underneath the trail as well?
Well, we have our new Lands and Resource Coordinator on staff, and he's working on developing those minimum expectations, and those are going to be standard across the board for all of these applications for people who need to cross the trail. So it will, I assume it will be detailed and make sure that I always love the idea that, you leave it better than when you found it. And if you're going to be doing some work in the area, that would be the expectation. Yeah, it is a concern for us as well from a staff perspective. And I think one of the most functional ways to deal with that, and Michael has demonstrated he's very good at working with the companies as they do this. So making sure that you can find mutually beneficial solutions for different items that come up.
Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Great. Now that brings us to roughly the same thing, but with Timber West. Please go ahead.
This is the same thing, but with Timber West.
I was waiting for that. Is there anything markedly different, Director Shannon? You had a comment for this one specifically, correct?
I mean, my comment would still kind of be the same. Concerns with the keeping the integrity of culverts and more specifically water lines intact with minimum expectations. But if you guys are satisfied that that's in there in the document, then I'm happy to move this motion. Do you want me to read the whole thing out?
Yeah, you probably.
Okay. So I will move that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors provide a letter of support for an industrial access permit for the Timber West Forest Company to access the log train trail for log hauling and related forestry activities, subject to confirmation that the ACRD is covered by the applicant's third-party liability insurance.
Thank you, Director Shannon. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Director Cote. Director Bodner, you had a comment or question?
Yes, please. This one takes in more use of the log train trail. I noticed that there was 4 accesses onto the log train trail, I believe. And I'm just wondering if we're looking at a time frame here, how long would they be using this log train trail? Like, are we looking at months, years, or any idea about the time frame?
Actually, I think Michael might be on. I don't know if he's available because I don't know about the timeline.
I'm here. My understanding is that this is a permit through the Ministry of Transportation and that it is for permanent access. Whether it is in use for, so I guess what I'm trying to say is there's no direct timeline associated with the access and the use of it. So could be a couple times that they log in that area, but once they're done logging in their spots, then they would be required to decommission it, and we would walk through that process in our minimum expectations document that we're going to prepare and share with them.
So it would still be up in the air as far as time is.
From what I've read in the application with the Ministry of Transportation, who would be providing it, there's no dedicated time.
Okay. So, and the permit that they have for it, is this something that would have to be renewed every year?
I don't believe so. Not with the Ministry of Transportation for this.
Yeah, I have some in regards to forestry. I have some experience, so I think this is actually tied to the activity of harvesting and everything around it. And once the cut block is done and the areas that are covered with this access are complete, in our minimum expectations document, it would be tied to one of those steps. And then Michael or someone he designates would go out and ensure everything's been done correctly. And then the whole thing gets closed off. If in 50 years they come back to harvest again, they would have to do this process again as long as they're all in the same place. But the reason why it's not linked to time is because forest companies often have Heather's and RPF, so I'm probably just killing her here. They might have time to pick and choose when they harvest, so that gives them the chance. Is that correct, Heather?
Somewhat. Mike's right that the permit that the applicants have applied for doesn't have a timeline on it. So once they receive the permit from Ministry of Transportation, it's going to be in effect until they cancel it or the ministry cancels it. I think it's just one thing to keep in perspective is that the regional district holds a license with the Ministry of Transportation for recreational purposes. We don't own the trail. The ministry owns the trail. They're really ultimately responsible for ensuring that the applicants use the trail as they are allowed to. So the issue of them installing proper culverts and using the surface for whatever they've been allowed to is really up to the ministry. Our interest is ensuring that once they're done, the trail is in as good a condition or better condition than when they started for recreational purposes.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's tied specifically to that interest. Yeah, okay. So are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Moved by Director Shannon, seconded by Director Cote. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Great. that brings us to item N, the Sprout Lake Lakebed license renewal for Dixon Park.
We're looking to extend our agreement by 3 years for our lakebed license agreement for the Faber Park dock. Dixon
Cote?
dock.
Yeah. Director Cote?
Thank you. So there's a little bit of history here. A few years back, we had some problems with theft of our dock. We've placed another one that is impenetrable. So we asked Timber West if we could have ownership of the foreshore. And we were in the works of actually moving forward on that with, I think it was around $6,000 for an assessment and $0 for actually the transfer besides that. So I'm just wondering if we could take another look at that now. And the Parks Commission were in favor of doing that at that time. There was problems because neighbors were complaining that there was a lot of people coming to the park and boats were accessing it and there was a lot of disturbance. Well, in the meantime, we've got footprint security. We put a stiff leg around the dock so that boats couldn't access it. We've taken all the precautions that were needed, and we still would like to have ownership of that foreshore. So if we could do that, but look into that. And I'm not sure if we need to wait to make this motion before we look into that, or if we should just make the motion.
I would still recommend that we proceed with an extension of the license.
Okay.
And then we can work on this parallel. It only gives us another 3 years.
Okay.
It's $10.
Right.
Yes. Well, yes, but I'd just like to move forward with ownership rather than renewal of a lease. But I would at this time then make the motion that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors amend the Sprout Lake Lakebed license agreement with Timber West Forestry Company by amending section 1.2 to delete March 30th, 2020 and replace it with March 30th, 2023, pay a term of $10 and authorize the CAO to enter into the agreement.
Great, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director McNabb. I saw that Mr. Erg and Douglas connected in. Do you have any comments before we move on?
Mr. Chair, I think this motion should proceed just as Ms. Brune recommended, and I think a subsequent motion to instruct staff to research the acquisition and fee simple would, after this motion is considered, would be appropriate. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, then we'll get on with that then. With that, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, and then Director Cote, you'd like to move that we do what Douglas just said?
Exactly. I'd like to make a motion that staff investigate the purchase, title transfer to the Sprout Lake or to the ACRD for the foreshore in front of Faber Community Park on Dixon Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Beckett. Alrighty, that brings us to comments or questions. Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. All right, item O. We're getting there, folks. Waste Reduction Week.
How exciting. Next week, stop making garbage. That's it. We're going to be telling you all about it next week. And we are going to have an AV Haulers meeting. So we'd like you to promote that with us.
Oh, yeah, anything that can be shared via Facebook or Twitter, I'll definitely reshare. Okay. Looks like we have a motion here. Would anyone like to move it?
I'll make the motion
Oh, thank you, Director Cote.
that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors direct staff to promote October 19th to the 23rd 2020 as Waste Reduction Week.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Haggard. Did you have a comment as well? No. Oh, you're going to move it. Okay. Okay. With that in mind, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. All right. Item P, the syrup and ISIP grants.
Yes, so there was a new grant program announced recently, and that was the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Grant Program. And we really, as staff, we looked at all the options available, projects that this would apply for. We have two high priority projects that really could use grant funding. One is the West Coast Multi-Use Path, which you're all very familiar with. We are currently short. We have a funding gap of about 800,000. And then we also have the West Banfield submarine transmission line replacement, which has been an ongoing issue. And we've had another catastrophic failure recently in the last month. So we have there is the other grant program, which is the ISIP Rural and Northern Communities Grant. They're similar but different. One is from the province, which is the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Grant Program. And then the other one is federal through the province. So through a lot of discussions, we are recommending that we put one application for the Community Economic Recovery Grant. We want to put the MUP application towards that one. And we would like to submit the Banfield West transmission line to the other grant program. Believe this has the highest probability of success. There's no guarantees, but yeah. And I don't know if Terry's online and if she wanted to provide any other comments on that.
Yes, I am here. This was a great deal of discussion for us because with the multi-use path, we're not sure which grant avenue we should be approaching and whether we should be submitting it as well to the federal opportunity. But we felt like our recommendation is what fits the best in terms of what the grant application is asking for and how the project kind of fits. We have discussed submitting both applications to both opportunities, but we were worried that waters us down a little bit. So definitely open to other suggestions, but this is the staff recommendation.
Okay, thank you for that. So we do have two motions.
I'd like to make the first motion that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District direct staff to make an application for the West Coast Multi-Use Path project through the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Grant Program.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Thank you, Director Johnson. Any comments? Director Steer, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just have a quick question on if I'm not sure of the capacity of that grant right now. I know in the past when we've applied for grants and there's a limited funding pool within that grant, that sometimes projects in the amounts of whatever they may be requesting, in this case, 750,000 by little looks, or maybe that's the second one. I was wondering if staff knew what the capacity of either one of those grants were.
Go ahead, when you're ready.
The first grant, the SARAP, it has grant funding. Each project can get up to $1 million. And the ISIP grant, I don't believe it has a cap on that, but I think there's it's limited to communities of 25,000 or less. Those are the restrictions.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? Follow up? No, all good. Okay. All those. Oh, Director Roberts, go ahead. Oh, get a move on. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to the second motion. Director Beckett.
I'd like to make the motion, and then when appropriate, I'd like to speak to it, please. The motion that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District direct staff to make an application for $750,000 to fund the West Banfield submarine transmission line replacement through investing in Canada Infrastructure Program Rural and Northern Communities Grant.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Roberts. And you have a comment, Director Beckett?
I do. As Jenny mentioned, we've had a number of failures this year and last. And every time we have a failure, we have a boil water advisory. So we are talking about a community risk that needs to be addressed. And, we just did a recent report that Jenny did. And this is not going away. We're going to have other failures. And it's impacting the entire west side of our community, not just the west side, because when we lose that kind of volume of water, it affects the entire Banfield community. So this truly is a priority, and I appreciate the work that Jenny and staff have done.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, any further comments or questions? All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so before we hand it off to Mr. Erg, I'm wondering if we want to call a quick bio break. It's been an hour and a bit, and we can all come back at 3:30 or as close to as we can. Alrighty. Dr. Steer?
Yeah, unfortunately, I had a prior commitment before I as the alternate in Mayor Osborne's leave of absence to another board meeting at 4 o'clock. So I will be leaving the meeting at approximately 3:45, if that's okay, Chair.
Yeah, I think we still have quorum, so I think we're all right. Okay. See everyone in 5 minutes. I feel a bit bad for our one viewer. But maybe they needed to take a break too. So I wanted to say I'm sorry, Director Steer. We didn't introduce ourselves at the beginning, and I should have recognized that you were here as well. But were there any items that you wanted to talk to before you leave, or are we all good regardless?
Unfortunately, it's in the closed session that I wanted to speak to, but I won't be able to be there. But maybe I might be able to provide feedback through a different forum outside that closed meeting.
Okay, by email or something, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tom, if you wanted to send me something, I can share it if it works.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm with the 2 iPad situation, and because it would actually have some relevance to you as well. But I think you probably might be able to address it anyway. So thank you, Rick.
Okay, I think I need to see 3 more faces and then we can go. Keep going. Oh wait, it's planning, so I have to wait for EA directors. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, there we go. Perfect timing. Okay, so that brings us now. I think we can keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, we can. To item 9.1, which is for EA directors only, but in order to maintain quorum, we do have to have people here. And this is for an item in Banfield. So this is a rezoning application for RA 2005. So Mike, if you wanted to take away, go ahead.
Sure. So this is a rezoning application in Haggard's Cove. So it is not within an official community plan area. And the application is for a downzoning. So the current property is currently zoned commercial, and they want to rezone it to residential. And their intention is to subdivide it into 2 lots and return it to what it would have originally been when this development was done. This was previously zoned for a fishing lodge. And I would also want to note that one of the conditions of the rezoning would be a covenant, and it's to limit vacation home use to 180 days. And I just wanted to clarify, this is for the owner. This is not limiting vacation rental. Vacation rentals are not permitted under the residential zone. So it's just to keep it sort of non-permanent residence. So that's the intent of the covenant, which applies to the other properties as well. And staff's recommendation is to proceed with first reading, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Great. Director Beckett, do you want to start?
Yeah, I would like to make the motion that bylaw P1410, Regional District of Alberni Clayoquot Zoning Atlas Amendment bylaw be read a first time.
Seconded by Director Shannon. Thank you. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay. So
Mr. Chair, I would make the motion that the public hearing for bylaw P1410 be delegated to the Director for Electoral Area A, the alternate director for the chairperson of the regional district.
thank you. Thank you, Director Shannon. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. All right, just a reminder for municipal folks, you don't have to vote. It's just the AA directors only. And then the last motion, please go ahead, Director Beckett.
Although I do appreciate their support, that the Board of Directors confirm that adoption of bylaw P1410 is subject to confirmation that the communal sewage disposal and water systems are capable of servicing the proposed lots. British Columbia Land Surveyor BCLS survey to confirm adequate fire separation between structures and suitable building envelope for existing structures to comply with required building setbacks in the R1 district following subdivision. Amending or removing existing restrictive covenants on strata lot 63 that permit commercial uses. Restrictive covenant registered on the property title to restrict uses to vacation home uses not exceeding 180 days per calendar year. And finally, meeting technical referral agency requirements.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Shannon. And that brings us to questions, comments. Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Excellent, thank you. That brings us to item B. It is a Beaver Creek item for development variance. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a an application in Beaver Creek, and the application is to reduce the rear yard setback to allow for construction of an accessory dwelling unit. The board reviewed this at a previous board meeting, and staff has sent out notifications, and we have not received any correspondence or any objections. So staff recommends proceeding with this variance.
Director McNabb.
So I'd move that the Board of Directors issue development variance permit DVE 20004.
Alrighty, and seconded by Director Shannon. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. All right, item C, Cherry Creek.
So this is a rezoning application. So a public hearing was held on October 5th and no members of the public attended. And staff recommends that the board receive the public hearing report and minutes and proceed with second and third reading. And the report also noted that we had some technical difficulties with live streaming, but that is not a requirement of our procedures bylaw. And so we assessed that, and staff's recommendation is to proceed. And again, happy to answer any questions.
Sounds good. So Cherry Creek, Director Bodner, would you like to read out the 4 motions we have?
Yes. I'd like to move that the Board of Directors receive the public hearing report.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Director McNabb. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried.
To move that the Board of Directors receive the public hearing minutes.
Thank you, Director McNabb. All those in favor? Motion carried.
I'd like to move that bylaw P1400 Regional District of Alberni Clayoquot Zoning Atlas Amendment be read a second time.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Shannon. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Finally,
I'd like to move that bylaw P1400 Regional District of Alberni Quacourt Zoning Atlas Amendment be read a third time.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Shannon. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, this is for all directors. This is an item for the Banfield Housing Needs Report contract. So everyone can vote on this. And
just a quick summary.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so this is staff are proposing a contract with Vancouver Island University to do the work for the Banfield Housing Needs Report. And just recommended that the board authorize the CIO and myself to enter into the contract. This is the first of a series of housing needs reports that will be done for all of the electoral areas. The regional district received funding to complete this work. And as Amy has noted in the staff report, this is something that we're required to do. So I think in a lot of ways we were lucky to get the funding, or it works out well. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
So before anyone goes, I'd like to apologize for my brain fart, but I am in fact a member of the Board of Governors for Vancouver Island University. So I'm wondering, Julia, if you could kick me out for the rest of this, that would be appreciated.
Director has been removed for the remainder of this topic.
Okay, I guess I'm back in. Okay. So the Banfield needs a report contract. Is there someone presenting that? Dr. Beckett?
Thank you, Chair Cote. Yes, I'd like to make the motion that the Board of Directors authorize the Chief Administrative Officer and the General Manager of Planning and Development to proceed with contracting Vancouver Island University to lead the development of the Banfield Housing Needs Report at a cost of the contract not to exceed $12,500.
Okay. Director Roberts, that's a second. Okay, is there any comments? Director Beckett?
Yes, this is very timely. Both the Hawaiian Nation and the Banfield Marine Science Center have already begun discussions about partnering on a housing initiative project on Banfield Marine Science Center property. And in order to access the grants, part of the criteria was to have the housing needs report completed. So again, very timely, very appreciated. And again, thanks for everybody's support.
Is there any other comments? Okay, hearing none. I think this is great. It ties in with the Alberni Valley and the city study here on housing needs. So all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll invite Chair Jack back now. Thank you.
There we go. I'm back. Thank you again for filling in there. It skipped my mind. My apologies, everyone. Okay, that hopefully brings us to item 9.2, A, for the Coastal Community Gardens Plan H grant. Oh, Plan H, yes. Okay. I don't know who's
so this is part of the agriculture plan work that we've been doing on the West Coast, and really the ACRD is sort of the funding run-through mechanism. The grant will actually be administered by the Quacourt Biosphere Trust, and again, staff recommends we proceed.
Great. Any comments or questions, Director Roberts? And then Director Cote.
I'd like to make that motion after additional comments.
Okay. Director Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd just like to point out that part of the support is the agricultural support workers that we have a contract with that's running out very soon. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks. Director Roberts, would you like to read the motion out?
Yes, thank you. That the Board of Directors authorize the CAO to execute a grant agreement with the BC Healthy Community Society to engage in the fostering collaboration among coastal community garden projects.
Okay, seconded by Director Shannon. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, item B is a Vancouver Foundation System Change Grant for all areas.
Yeah, so this is phase one of an application for a $300,000 grant with the idea that it would go for over 3 years. And to expand the regional agriculture support plan, building on what we, I'm going to read some comments that Alex provided me because he's done all of the work on this, or he's done the staff work on this. The agriculture support workers, led by Heather Shobe, have done the grant application and the initial stage. So the idea is to expand on regional agricultural support plan, building on what we have been doing since 2014 within the agriculture. In our agriculture plan, with stronger connections with the province and providing a model for other areas within the province to use. So that's the purpose of the grant. And the funding would be contingent on the ACRD providing 25% matching funding, which is what is we have been doing. Fits within the dollar amounts we've been funding and is within the 5-year financial budget for in the 5-year financial plan. And again, this is stage one, and then staff would be reporting back in January if we were one of the applicants that would be proceeded to stage two. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Director Cote and then Director Roberts.
Thank you. This is a wonderful opportunity for us, I believe, and I think we have a great chance of getting this grant. So we're facing once again the problem of our contract is running out at the end of the December. So it leaves a gap between the end of the year and the beginning of the next contracted year that is covered by our budget. So looking at this, that we need to be able to fill this gap, applying for this grant, and that we need to secure that we have people to work going forward and being able to take on this work if we get the grant. Even if we don't, we still want to continue on, in my opinion, with the program that we have in place. What's on your fork and the wonderful work that our contractors are completing is highlighted in here. So I'm just wondering, I guess from staff's point of view, the contract that is up in December, can we extend it and sort of tie it in with this application?
I think if we're successful in the application, they would be mirrored together, and we'd be bringing back information on how to do that. Renewing the contract, that's certainly something that the board can do. We can bring that back, at a meeting, in this year. We could bring this back for October or the beginning of November if that's what the board wishes us to do. We certainly can do that. Staff's recommendation was that we proceed sort of regardless of if we get this grant funding or not. It's still proceed with the work we've been doing. It's been very successful on as far as providing support to the agriculture industry throughout the regional district, and has also been very successful in getting a lot of grant applications and moving other things forward as well. So my recommendation would be is proceed with this grant application, and if the board wants, just a motion to bring the contract back for the next board meeting, we can do that as well.
Sounds good. If there's more comments, or I'll make the motion.
There's more comments, but I'll come right back to you. I have Director Roberts and then Director Shannon. Did I miss anyone? No? Okay, Director Roberts, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that through the chair. Yeah, it's greatly appreciated. And I'm quite pleased that it is for all areas, including the West Coast and the initiatives that are occurring out there on the West Coast with regards to agriculture. And it's extremely important. So I applaud staff for that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for that. That brings me to Director Shannon.
Thank you. I was gonna make one comment just about the contract as well, but Director Cote touched on it where the contracts end the end of December, but they're not renewed until we're finished budgeting in March. So there's a 3-month hiatus that we don't have them here technically. And it can be a hindrance for other grant applications and things like that too. So, but I'll save my other comments when we do bring this back, or I'm happy to make the motion to bring it back, this contract, for our next meeting. And I'll wait till Penny makes this motion, and I'll happily second.
Okay, please go ahead, Director Cote.
Okay, I move that the Board of Directors support an application to the Vancouver Foundation System Change Granting Stream for a 3-year regional agricultural support project.
Seconded by Director Shannon. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Dr. Steer, are you heading out?
I'll be leaving the meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. Did you have a second motion you'd like to do, Director Shannon? Or
Yeah, however staff would like to word it, I would like to make the motion that we bring back the egg contract back at our next meeting for review.
Right, thanks, Director Cote. So the next meeting, so would that be the 12th, I guess?
The 28th.
28th. Oh yes, of course.
And unless it works better for staff for November, whatever they think is most appropriate.
Yeah, sorry. From staff perspective, we're happy to get this back we'll try to get back as soon as possible. So we'll certainly shoot for the 28th.
28th it is. So so moved by Director Shannon, seconded by Director Cote, and all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay. I have to say that is a great photo of the dog in the background, Director Cole. The dog, yeah. Okay, we have 10.1, which is staff reports. Are there any items? Oh, we're going right to Director Zenner, or Director Zenner, Ms. Zenner for verbal report on the EOC. Thank you, and please go ahead.
Thank you. So provincially, there's 1,496 COVID cases, with 77 people being in hospital. There was an increase of 158 cases in the last 24 hours, including 2 new cases in Island Health. The numbers from yesterday, there were 17 active cases in the Island Health, with 7 of them being in the Central Island area. I'll have to wait until the end of the day to get the most updated numbers for Island Health. One good thing to note is that in Island Health, we don't have any hospitalizations due to COVID, and we haven't had any since April. So we're certainly faring better on the island than the rest of the province. There's about 1,000 tests being done per day on the island with a 0.2% positivity rate. All cases have been linked to known cases. There's been no surprises. One other highlight to note is that there are less cases now than compared to early September prior to school starting. So in early September, there were 1,900 cases, and now there's just under 1,500. So I know there was some concern that with school going back, there would be an increase in number of cases, and that hasn't held true. As you know, there were 2 school exposures, one here in Port Alberni and one in Campbell River. Both of those were single cases in the school. Contact tracing was done very efficiently, and there was no in-school transmission. The City of Port Alberni's Economic Development Department has developed 3 COVID-19 impact surveys. One's for businesses, one's for residents, and one's for job seekers. Purpose of these surveys is to collect data about how the local economy has changed over time due to the impacts of COVID. Those surveys are available on chooseportalberni.ca, and that information is being shared out on social media. So if you choose to share those surveys, that would be appreciated. The BC CDC put out guidelines for Thanksgiving, how to maintain safe social interactions. They also put out guidelines for Halloween. It's got some good information on there, how to participate in Halloween, how to hand out candy properly. So I would encourage you to read that. Funding remains in place from the province for the shower facility at the Echo Field House for the vulnerable population. And then I just wanted to mention a couple of other things that aren't related directly to COVID. One is that the flu vaccine is being currently distributed on the island. Island Health has indicated that their website will be updated by the end of this week, allowing people to book their flu vaccine online at a public health clinic. You'll also be able to see which pharmacies are offering flu shots, whether they're drop-in or whether they're taking scheduled appointments. You'll be able to see your community's supply of the flu vaccine. You'll be able to see which pharmacies and which clinics carry what type of vaccine, because there is a nasal spray option for children. So all that's good information for people to find out. And then lastly, I just wanted to remind everybody that tomorrow is International Shakeout Day. This is a yearly event encouraging residents to prepare for an earthquake and conduct an earthquake drill. So it happens tomorrow at 10:15. We are conducting a drill at the ACRD office. And we've also partnered with 93.3, the Peak radio station, to run a contest. And they're running trivia questions, and there are prizes to be won, including hand crank radios and a 72-hour emergency kit. So if you want to win a prize, tune into the radio station for the next couple days. And that's about it.
Are there any comments or questions? Director Cote and then Director Haggard.
Thank you. Is all of that information available in like our little magazine thing or mail out newsletter, like around the community or something it's called?
Which information are you referring to?
All of the about the flu vaccines, Halloween, Shakeout Day, the survey, how to get in touch with it, because it's a lot of information.
Yeah, so the survey just came out today. It's being shared on social media. So if you follow the city's Facebook page, you'll see it there. You can share it from there. Some of the information I shared will be in your daily or your weekly bulletin that comes out every Thursday afternoon. Some of the other information is being shared on the regional district's website.
Thanks.
Okay. And then next up we have Dr. Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sure we've all heard that a lot of the snowbirds aren't going down south this year because the borders are closed. So those snowbirds are coming to BC, and a lot of them are coming to Vancouver Island and filling up the campsites. I was just wondering, Heather, have you heard anything within the medical community about any apprehension that people from other provinces could be bringing COVID to here as they're coming to our campsites?
I haven't heard that concern from the medical community, but I have heard it from residents and from the media. Certainly people traveling is a concern, but the same precautions that we've all been taking care of the last few months will apply to residents, whether they're from BC or from another province.
Thank you.
Dr. Cole.
I just wanted to add that the numbers I've had in some of our regional updates is that we're expecting 7,000 Albertans in RVs. And I don't know if that means 3,500 RVs with 2 persons in it each or what that exactly looks like, but that was for all of Vancouver Island. So that's actually a lot on the island, I'm sure. And from my perspective, in with the wraparound healthcare team and healthcare here on the West Coast. We're treating it as though summer was just carrying on with many out of province and such visitors from our perspective.
Thank you, Director Cote.
Thank you. The occupation is what I've been calling it, of unauthorized campers. I did listen on the West Coast committee meeting to hear what was being said, because the occupation is not just on the West Coast. It's happening all over the place. There's 2 sites right now that I know of at Sprout Lake. So I've been asking staff to investigate, and this is, they're unauthorized. So 7,000 Albertans coming to Vancouver Island is a lot to be trying to host. We don't really have that many accommodations in my mind. I just don't think that we have it, but I'm just wondering if we have a plan at all on how to deal with this influx of snowbirds.
So I think that's a very good question. I happen to notice that a lot of the RV parks that I drive by every other day are already full. So this is something that's going to affect the entire island, I think. Sorry, I missed who's next. Is that Dr. Cole? Please go ahead.
I just want to make one more comment that I think if we had something that we could actually, if we were looking at positive side and something to look forward to, is the demographic is going to change, and we're not going to be seeing as many people in this occupation living in their cars and such. They actually come with their own facilities and use dumping sites, whether they're dry camping or not. They would still be using dump sites and such. And so I think the impact to our environment will be a lot less. And I think they will actually be spending some of their tourist dollars in some of our, using some of our services that are available to tourists. So I feel as though it will get better. It's not going to be, anyways, I just think it's going to be an okay winter.
Okay, sounds good. Any further comments or questions? All right, seeing none, we do have a motion just to receive the reports. Thank you, Director Roberts. Seconded by Director Cole. All those in favor? Motion carried. Great. All right, there are no committee reports. We do have one other report for the accomplishments. Oh, 2, sorry. The accomplishments report for the Forestry Enhancement Society and the financial plan for VIRL. Would anyone like to pull anything up? Dr. Cote?
Thank you. So Vancouver Regional Library is opening. I think it's the 20th that the Alberni Valley Library will actually have access. I went there and was greeted at the door. They're doing a great job as to providing people with books right now. So it's opening up. There's been a lot of comments from the community at large everywhere wanting the libraries to open up. And when we have 38 libraries, it's a big job to get them all open in a safe manner and distributing books around throughout that whole system. So they are doing a great job, and just wanted to make that comment. Thanks.
Yeah, I think just on my end, I've noticed a lot of good activities on behalf of the regional library, just with outreach. I am going to celebrate loudly when the kids' story times come back, though. Those were always a highlight of early parenting, I guess. Okay, so we do have a motion to receive the reports. Dr. Shannon, seconded by the cat. We'll make that Director Johnson. Okay, any further comments? Seeing none. Oh, Director Roberts, go ahead. And then Director Haggard.
Through the chair, did we miss the ACRD Organics newsletter comment, or is that just included?
That was just included because Heather's report is verbal, we pull that one out automatically.
Okay.
We can return to it after this item if you like.
I just wanted to, I don't know if Jody was going to make any comment on it or not, but no, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. And did I miss someone else? Sorry. No? Okay. Okay. Oh, Director Haggard, you did have a comment. Yes.
Sorry, I was just raising my hand early to vote.
Oh, okay. With that in mind, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay. So if we're okay, just continuing to move on, that brings us to question period because there's no unfinished nor any late business. Julia or Janice, is there anything on responses at all? Or I guess the chat from the attendees, of which there are 0.
There, one attendee has left the meeting. There have been no questions asked during this meeting.
Okay, great.
And Mr. Chair, nothing received on our responses at the email.
You're muted.
Good. Am I chairing the hospital district meeting as well? In Director Osborne's absence, I think that's how it
Yes,
works.
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
All right, thank you. All right, that brings us to recess. Could we have a motion to recess to the hospital district meeting? Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Thank you, Dr. McNabb. All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay. So I was a bad boy and did not print out my agenda, so I'll have to look to the side to my PDF. Okay, so we will call to order at 4:04 p.m. and we'll recognize that we're conducting our business today on the territories of the Nuchanoth and Coast peoples. And from there, this is in fact being recorded and is being live streamed to YouTube and on our website. With that in mind, we can move into the approval of the agenda. Is there anything we'd like to add or subtract, or just move as stated? Moved by Director Roberts, seconded by Director Shannon. All right, that'll move us into the adoption of minutes for the Board of Directors meeting, the hospital district meeting, September 9th, 2020. Moved by Director Roberts, seconded by Dr. Johnson. Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. All right, we have no petitions or delegations, no correspondence for action or information, nor any requests for decisions or bylaws. That brings us to reports. First report is the Banfield Health Center. Dr. Beckett, any report?
Yes, sir. Number one, flu vaccines are going to be administered by appointment at the clinic starting this week. Staff identified that the TELUS, and I have reported on this before, but the TELUS $250,000 investment into boosting the cell service has made a huge difference for staff and for clients who are at the clinic after hours. I've mentioned this before, but staff again identified that when they work alone, to have the first responder volunteers assist has been absolutely amazing. There was a shout out to the Canadian Coast Guard. Oftentimes, Canada Coast Guard is transporting patients up the inlet because the medevacs are grounded because of weather and the roads would take too long, and it's a shorter time for Canadian Coast Guard. And last, to put a little smile on your face, they wanted me to share this with you, and I don't know if you can see it. Bear with me. Can you see all the hooks there? Those are from folks that have been fishing and visited the clinic, and they've removed, and I can't remember exactly how many they removed this summer.
Just stop. Just stop. Yeah. No. If you want the nuclear codes from me, just do something to my hands at that point. That's, I've had hooks in my hands. So.
And that's my report. They're a great group of staff there. We're so blessed to have that facility there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Shannon?
Are the barbs pinched?
Okay, that brings us to the Alberta Clayoquot Continuing Care Society. Director McNabb.
So we had our meeting last week, and actually in person at the Italian Center, which was a very good venue for it. We were able to more than have enough room to have our social distancing, and it was interesting to see everybody again and kind of get connected. But a couple of things that came out of the meeting, one of them is the provincial requirement for single site workers, and Fir Park and Echo are two different sites, and they're funded differently, and they're, as far as the ministry is concerned, two different places, even though they have a hallway that connects them. But so that's really been an issue, because a lot of the temporary staff goes between Fir Park and Echo, and it's certainly utilized a lot better in that fashion. The management has been able to transit between the two facilities. They've got that handled, but it has caused a lot of issues with regards to personnel and actually having enough staff to carry on the activities that they need to. So the other thing that was discussed was the impact on the residents at Fir Park and Echo of being basically quarantined throughout this whole period, not being able to have visitors, and it is certainly a mental stress on those that are cognitive, and a huge problem. The staff sort of bear as well as the residents, and so hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel, and we can sort of go back to ordinary days where a family can visit with the kids and all the rest of it. So it's hugely important. They've done all they can do with iPads and FaceTime and all the other things, but having somebody give you a hug, it's not the same on an iPad for some reason or other. Although I don't know, we're getting so used to this that it may become the same. Who knows? But anyhow, that's my report for today. Thanks.
Thank you for mentioning that. Actually, we had an elder pass away this past weekend who was in a facility not unlike those, and I think he was at Symbiosis. And having those connections electronically is not bad, but definitely getting to a point where we can have visits with grandkids and great grandkids happening again is definitely something we want to see in the future. So yeah, thank you. That brings us to the West Coast Native Healthcare Society. Dr. Cote.
Thank you. So we did meet on Thursday, September the 24th in person for the West Coast Native Healthcare AGM. Everything is in good standing, and planning for the new 40-unit housing is continuing. So all things are good. People are feeling the absence of loved ones for sure, but staff are loving, caring people. So I did have my mother-in-law lived at Rainbow Gardens, and I know the staff well, and they do take very good care of the residents. So that's all I've got to report today. Thanks.
Thank you for that. I think that brings us to the Tofino General Hospital. So I think we have two directors standing. So Director Cole or Roberts, please go ahead. Director Cole.
Earlier today, I was in a meeting. It's a multi-agency meeting. However, both the site director for Tofino General Hospital and Carrie Marshall were both there. the physician lead. We did discuss all things healthcare. However, a statement made that the hospital continues to be at full capacity, i.e. all beds and all emergency space continues to be full throughout the summer, and we're moving that way into the fall as well. So everybody is still taxed and doing the best we can to keep up. So otherwise, and they are going through some space renovation right now. So that's a little bit challenging also, but outside of that, things are just very busy on the West Coast.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the Albany Climate Health Network. Director Cote.
Thank you. The Health Network is recruiting new members at this time. It would be very good to have somebody coming from the Banfield and Ackla area. We don't have any representation there at this point, so would love to see that happen. And our next meeting is next week. And that's about it.
Okay, Director Beckett.
Yes, thank you, Director Cote. Are you Zooming your meetings? Is that, and again, I'm just thinking that it's difficult to get anyone to drive in from Banfield, or an Ackla to attend 10 meetings these days with the roads the way they are.
Yes, we are Zoom meeting, and that opportunity is there. There's a process, so the Health Network, there's an application, but we really have been lacking that person from that area for a while now. We've had a couple of representatives, but none at this time.
Okay, I'll take it offline then, perhaps, Penny, and we can chat over the weekend. I have a community affairs meeting on Tuesday, I believe. Perfect time for me to bring it up and push it, but I would like to bounce it off you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay. All right, so that brings us to the West Coast General Hospital. Anyone from the Alberni Valley have an update? Dr. Cote.
Thank you. Had mentioned to Chair Osborne asking for a report from the West Coast General Hospital. They said that they would give us some reports more than annually, and it would be really good. I don't know if Chair Osborne had actually contacted them to ask them if they could give us a report, but she said she was going to. So I guess it's going to be, I can try and ask at the Health Network, but that's not giving us anything at the board. Thanks.
Okay. Director McNabb.
So with my wife's medical issues that we've had over the last 3 months, I can certainly tell you that it is not business as usual at West Coast General Hospital, and that access to specialists or any of the equipment, X-ray, CAT scans, whatever, is really difficult. And some of the simple services that would exist previously, going to the lab and other things like that, have dramatically changed. And I mean, for me, I get it, but for the average person that isn't involved in the circles that we are, it must be really tough to deal with. Not being able to, like, she goes to the specialist, I can't go into the specialist with her, and support her, to even get into the specialist office, she has to have an appointment to get an appointment. And it's tough. And, somebody going in with, that needs an X-ray or something, I mean, it's a whole different ballgame than it used to be. And I think everybody wants to do it over the phone, and for the type of trauma that my wife has gone through, over the phone visits are really don't kind of cut it. And, the visual part of the appointment is highly, it's important, and it's important for the patient, and it's important to have a correct diagnosis. So, I'm hoping that they're continually modifying the way that they do business and trying to fit it within this COVID box, but it appears to be getting more restrictive instead of less restrictive, and it just isn't being facilitated the way that I think they can do. And I've talked to a couple of doctors about it, and they agree that you still got to get treatment, you still got to go on with your life, and it just closing the doors and saying come back Wednesday afternoon isn't good enough.
Thank you. Through my wife and my child, we've had the same kind of experiences. And this may bear some pressure or an inquiry or a letter from this board to Island Health to be on top of what is the plan for returning things to a little more accessible, because there is definitely at least a perceived barrier in some way, shapes, and forms. Director Cote, you had a comment?
Thank you. I know of a few women that have actually had babies recently, and the challenges around that. So yeah, a report coming from the West Coast General. If we got some questions together, even if they could just Zoom in with us for brief meeting, that would be really good. So maybe if people wanted to send their questions to staff, that would be really beneficial, so that we've got something to start with.
Maybe we can invite either West Coast or Island Health or both to be delegations for this meeting next month, right? Yeah.
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
I think that's.
We don't need a motion for that, do we?
I don't think so, as long as we understand that. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the reports. I don't think anyone else has any other reports. Okay, seeing none, could we have a motion to adopt or receive the reports? Thank you, Director Roberts. Seconded by everyone. Director Shannon, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, motion to adjourn. Thank you, Director Cole, seconded by Director Bodner. All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, so that brings us back to the original timeline. And now that brings us to a motion to go in camera. Okay, so it looks like we have a motion that will